As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. And speaking of all pro dads, I'm here with a bunch of, what do we say, just above average dads?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
On our good days.
Yeah.
Semi-pro dads.
Yeah.
Pining to be in the big leagues.
That's who you're talking with, folks.
Yeah.
No, the more I think about it, the deeper we get into these episodes, I keep thinking, I hope people don't think that we think that we're the pros. Yeah. But we're trying, right?
We're figuring it out.
Just like there. We're figuring it out.
That's it.
We're figuring it out.
We want to be all pro dads.
We want to be. We will be. But, you know.
I think if you're tuned in right now, that's kind of making you an all-pro dad. You know what I mean?
There's that.
Because you're desiring to figure this out with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I love it. And so each week we ask one question. That's all we can handle. We're going to ask one question, talk about this, talk about the challenges of it, talk about maybe some answers of it, and then we're going to give you a pro move. And that's just, sounds bigger than it is. It's just something that's really powerful but really doable for real dads living in the real world. And as we're sitting around this table, I'm realizing more and more we do live in the real world.
Yeah.
Dads. And so we're with you. I don't feel like we're having to stretch to relate to our audience. I think we're all going, no, we have not risen above either. So the question of the day is, how do I raise a non-judgmental child? And I thought that's pretty heavy. So I thought we'd start with this. Has your kid ever mimicked a behavior of yours that just made you cringe? You know, because kids are always watching. Have they ever mimicked something that you've done? You're going, oh man, they really are watching everything.
Yeah. My answer to that is all the time.
Yes.
All the time? Yeah.
And my boys in different ways, they're spitting images of me. Yeah. In some ways, some good, some really great ways, and I love those. And then
I'm fishing for the cringes.
A lot of the bad within the past week. There's like there was a moment where I remember the moment at least, or my feeling of like, oh God.
There
and it's just like self-shaming. Like,
yes.
I feel like they're a manifestation of self-shaming.
Mine is the self-talk that they mimic from me, and I didn't notice it until my now 6-year-old Noah did it, which was like whenever I would do something, I would always say, "I'm so bad at this," right? And to me, it's just natural. And I'm like, but I'm not that hard on myself. But when I heard my 6-year-old son do something where he messed up and said, I'm so bad at this, I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I had to start correcting it in him, and by correcting it in myself to not say that.
I've noticed it a lot in what they say, more than what they do necessarily. But they repeat everything you say, and then I found that, but this specific instance, my son was doing something that I was doing where I was like, his mother would say, hey, will you do this? And she asked me to do things around the house all the time. And most of the time, I don't respond. I just do them, right? I don't say, yes, babe, I'll do it. No problem. Give me a second. Or I'll just go do it. And so what he has started doing is his mom will ask him to do something. He won't respond. And I'm like, did you hear your mother? Like, he was like, what do you mean? I'm gonna do it. Like, you didn't say it. And then I realized, and she was like, looked at me, gave me the look, and I was like, oh, I do that. I do that. I know I do.
Hearing you guys, it's all rushing to my head.
Now
I'm like,
I know.
oh, golly.
Now the examples are coming clear.
Yeah. Fletcher is my youngest, and he's kind of, we're working with him with like, he gets like really frustrated really fast. And I can get frustrated sometimes at things that are silly, like, but are you kidding me? Like kind of stuff like that. And then he'll say, and a lot of times it's like really cute, because he's 6.
Right.
But it's just like I kind of want to, stop that there, please, because it's just going to manifest into getting frustrated really fast at stuff that does matter or stuff that could get you punched in the face one day, So it's just like
because they're literally just repeating the sound bites in the exact same mannerisms, had nothing to do.
And I see him do this all the time, like this.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And I'm like, oh, I feel like I do that.
They're just
sometimes.
listening to it. It's I don't know how do you describe that. Or you got to be kidding. Your hands in the air, touching my head,
tapping the forehead, like use your brain.
Yeah. Reggie, I'm gonna have to piggyback off yours, and it's different hearing it from a teenager, especially my daughter. My boys, like my relationship's been a little different with them. It's been a little more physical. It's been a little bit more humorous, a little bit more activity. With her, it's been a little bit more relational in terms of conversations that we have. She could have a deep conversation with me early on. I remember when she was just like 2 years old, like I'm talking and she grabs me by the face so I can look her in the eyes. I'm thinking, I don't think my boys know what color my eyes are. So wow, this is really different. Yeah. But watching her at 16, and we can be a lot alike. She'll say things like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. That was so stupid. I'm so stupid. She'll go, I'm so stupid. I'm sorry. She is a chronic apologizer. And I'd say, babe, why do you apologize all the time? She goes, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
And her mom gently went, I think because both of us do that. We're both chronic apologists. I'm sorry. And I think that's one of the ones that's made me cringe. I'm going, I'm sending you off to college and we're still working on you not saying that I'm sorry. So that's ones that can make us cringe. And those went a little deeper, like we were saying, what's something fun? But I think all of those are important. What do you guys, what can we do as dads to model non-judgmental behavior for our own kids? So let's kind of shift this. We're living in a very, very polarized world. We see people doing things that we absolutely do not agree with.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how do we do this? I mean, when we came up with this topic, I was like, oh, this is one I've struggled with the most. So how do we do that?
I would say you start with being educated, right? On things that you could judge. And I think judgments typically come from an uneducated place. And now we're not talking about values. We're not talking about truths. But when we're raising our kids 7, 6, and 2, very young, but the world is forever changing, and there's so many things that are outside of the values we build in our children in our home. And so with that, I'm like, okay, you're going to be, because we're building values in them, you're going to be able to judge things. Because you're going to be like, that's not the value that I was raised with. That's not the truth that I was raised with. And that I have my foundational, beliefs on. So therefore, we have to instill education on the things that are outside of our home. Because now they can say, oh, I can still love you. Oh, yes, you can still love. I can still do these things that just doesn't like put this fear in my heart about you, where then now I'm judging you and I'm saying you're wrong. I don't want to raise kids like that.
Right.
I want to raise kids that love, but they know and have values.
We want them to love, but we want them to have values. So how do we do that in a way where we're talking about values, but they're not judgmental? How do we do that?
So I think what I've tried to do, what my wife and I've tried to do with our boys, is to instill in them the innate value of a person. To judge someone flippantly or quickly, I think devalues that person as a person, and it puts the value of their actions on them as a person.
One of your messages to your kids, every person is valuable.
Every person matters.
Every person matters. And I think we forget that, you guys.
Yeah.
I think, that's so profound, but I think we forget, right?
We're so used to our story too. Like we're so familiar with our story. And to your point about education is we have no idea their story. We have no idea what they're going through in that moment where they're doing something or making choices that we disagree with. And maybe it's part of who they are and that's just the choices that they make. But we also judge behaviors. Like in an earlier episode, we were talking about kids losing control and parents like yelling at them in stores. You're like, you have no idea what's going on in that parent's mind in that moment.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what has affected them up until this point to cause them to choose the choices that they're making, the things that they believe in. What has surrounded them their whole life that causes them to make those choices? And so for me, like what we're trying to teach our kid is that it's kind of similar, but the idea of being of judging someone is putting yourself above them. Like I am better than that person
That's
because
a great
of
definition. Say that one more time.
Yeah, it's like I by saying I'm judging you by saying I am better than you. I am more moral than you. I have a better moral compass. I have a better framework of how to do life than you do. And that's we're trying to teach our kids that like no, you don't. Number one, I mean, you have a moral framework and you live in that, but you can't put yourself above them because now you're standing on this pedestal looking down at someone, and you've almost forgotten them as a person.
Because you don't know what's going
exactly.
on.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking, like, when you were talking, like, if you really think about it, everyone outside of our immediate family, like, whenever we meet them or whenever we see them, like, we're just getting a snapshot of them.
Yeah.
We're not seeing their entire life.
Right.
Like we were saying, we don't know where they're coming from.
No.
We don't know where they're going to. We just have them in that moment. And it's hard. It's so hard to judge a person by a moment.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to be judged that way.
I don't want to be judged
be.
by a moment either. So
Yeah, and I was going to say, and this may just be for me or our listeners, which is like, as we're discussing raising a non-judgmental child, we're not saying that you're affirming any and everything.
100%.
Because you love and you can move in that way. You can, love people as they are people. But like as I and this just kept coming to me as we were talking, it's like, well, shoot, are we saying that we affirm anything and everything? It's like, no. We're just saying we're not going to raise our children to judge. So they're not sitting at a higher seat of I'm a better human than you. But they're saying, hey, you know what? If I'm going to move with love, I can show you that and still hold my values and still hold the truth.
The moment somebody feels like from you that you think you're better than them, you've lost them.
You have no influence.
You have no influence whatsoever. You have no shot at having a relationship. You have no chance.
Right. And so I just think it's the thing. So I'm hearing don't elevate. Don't elevate. We want to lead. You said I want to move in love. And I just think, oh wow. I want my kids to move towards love. If they have to err toward anything, move toward love. We can talk about values over here without it being based on this person being wrong or less than. Right? Yeah. So how do we address our own biases and prejudice to ensure that we're not unintentionally passing them on to our kids? I mean, because we've got our judgments, right? Like, how do we continually like put ourselves through a filter going, what do I have judgment over? Like, what am I judging, or what am I quick to judge, or what do I know that I'm 100% right on? Like, how do we continue to explore that?
I would say monitored exposure. So let's just use this. We listen to a lot of music in our house, typically worship music, but I love some country every now and then.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, really?
So
Who do you like?
I don't know names. I just know.
Yeah.
I just know melodies. I just know the vibe.
You don't want to take it that far.
Yeah,
right?
I can't take it that far. That's weird. No, but so with country, I'm like, okay, I don't want my kids to grow up and be like, oh, country music is stupid. Now, might be like some high level situation, right? This isn't the deep stuff, but so they don't do that. Well, let's like play some country music. Right. So then now they're exposed to it. Now they're not, going to pass on this, being black. You guys know that, right? I'm black. Okay. So like,
what? Wait,
being so it's like, typically, especially in Minnesota, black people don't listen to country like that. Now in the South they do. But so again, just circling it around, I expose my kids to that, so then they're not like, having this judgment or this their own bias to that type of music. And that could be with a lot of other things too. But again, it's monitored. It's not like just go and expose to
Monitored
anything.
exposure.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, we're going to put out something there that we're not going to judge, but we're not going to, it doesn't have to be involve things that we're going to have to rewind and work on.
Right.
Yeah, just
it has to be monitored.
That's
Yeah.
good. Monitored exposure. I like that. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I had the same kind of example. I grew up on Tupac and Biggie, you know, and so like that has had a connotation, being negative sometimes.
Yeah.
And so
tell us what Rom did with those. You were telling us
yeah.
earlier.
That was my first album that I bought with my own money, $24.99. She snapped it right in half, behind my back, mind you, and then took me to the trash can and showed me that she did it. Just a straight savage. But yeah, I mean, so when I think about hip hop music, I love it, and I want my kids to be exposed to it and not be afraid of it because. In some cases, people are like, no, you can't. That music has negative connotation. I grew up on it and I love it, and so I listen to it. And
you're not snapping anybody's.
I'm not
CDs,
snapping anybody's
right?
CDs, but no, I listen. But for me, I listen, to KB and to Lecrae, and so that's I like that music, especially when I'm working out. But I want my kids exposed to the things that may seem scary to them. Like, and there's some people propose as scary as like, ooh, you need to stay away from that. Like, no. You walk right up to it and you figure it out, and you figure out what's right about it, what we don't agree with it. And because if you continue that is where you start slipping into that judgment. It's like, oh, that's bad. I can't be close to that. I can't be near that. I can't associate with that. And so it's like, no, that's because you're uneducated about it. And so it's like, what else in life? I that was the first example that came to my mind.
That's good. That's good.
I think to help my kids, I need to help like better myself. Going back to like my example of Fletcher, kind of getting really worked up and stuff like that. I have noticed that like when I'm, maybe scrolling through the Twitter headlines, it really just makes me sad and angry and a little hopeless sometimes, unfortunately. And that does translate into my overall demeanor or how I'm interacting with my family after I've, Twitter scrolled for a little bit. And then, and all of a sudden now, we got to do some chores. And I'm like, I'm already ticked off because of, something that someone said on Twitter. And now I got to do the dishes,
So so exposure to judgmental people makes you more, it either makes you more judgmental,
or it makes me
it's the
angry.
echo chamber. I'm going to find all the people that agree with me, and you see all the stuff, and everybody's mad. All your people judging the same way as you. Now I'm judging. Kids are the great equalizer, right? Yeah. We have to teach them to be judgmental. I think you got to teach a kid how to be judgmental. We just went to a thing called Lighthouse Retreat. It's for families that are dealing with childhood cancer, and everyone's like, "Oh, that sounds so sad," and it is sad, but it's not sad. Like you go down there with your family and you serve families that are dealing with it so they can get a break because they don't get a break. So there's a nurse down there and there's all this professional thing. And then there's all these families that are dealing with it. You watch kids, and I'm getting chill bumps just thinking about it. You watch kids, they equalize everything. They go play, they don't see anything. Every kid's the same. I think that we have to teach that. I mean, because kids, do you guys think that? Do you think we have to teach them to be judgmental?
I think... I love our church. By this point, I think it's like 62 different nations represented at our church. But that just means that like my kids, like when they go to Sunday school or when they're doing like children's ministry, like they are exposed to kids that are coming from regions all over the world. Like some of my son's best friends at church, like their family came from Africa like 5 years ago. And they're playing together. And the beautiful thing about it is that, like, I guess unbeknownst to me, we've been able to have our boys in situations where they're surrounded by people from different nations, and it's not a big deal. My kids will ask, and they'll be like, hey, so-and-so, like, they talk about how their family does this and this. Like, that's just really different, isn't it? And I was like, well, yeah, all families are different, and helping them to realize that.
Reggie, weigh in here from a race perspective. Like, what is with your kids? How does that play itself out?
My kids are Black and Vietnamese, so they are biracial, and like they're learning that too, which is crazy. And I realize you have to be intentional about teaching things like that. So to the question of like, there are families who it may be a little bit harder just because of their social economic standpoint and stance, that like there are some neighborhoods where, there might be 2% African American in the neighborhood. Like, so how do we expose our kids to African Americans? Yeah. Like, how do you, right? So you have to be way more intentional, right, in doing so. And you, again, that's the fear thing, right? You can't be scared if your son, your daughter is listening to hip hop, again, monitored, because there's a lot of music that's on any side of, genre. You gotta be like, hey,
there's
you can't
country
listen to
songs. What in the world
absolutely.
are they?
So, but you just can't fear it.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna set up this wall that the kids are, as they grow older, they're not even gonna know it's there because it's been embedded in them that it's like, I'm not even knowing this wall of this fear I have about this other race. And so that you got to help them. I mean, you don't even have to help them at early age. You just make sure the wall is never built up. And it starts with you, though, as a parent. I believe it starts with you as a dad, as a mom. That's going to help you, never have the wall, this invisible wall of fear and judgment in place in front of your kids.
I love that. So let me ask you guys this question. How do we empower our children to stand up against discrimination?
It's going to be a case-by-case basis with the kids, because it depends on their level of understanding, their level of maturity, their personality, right? Their willingness to be bold and stand up, and sometimes it's going to be different with each kid. I think my daughter is like very bold, and my son is a people person. Like he's a relator. He loves people, and he loves to be the entertainer. And my daughter is a rule follower, and so I can already tell she's going to be bold, and he's going to have
be Buck.
He's going to be me. He's going to be the one that's I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to go this far. But I think it's teaching them based on how they're wired or how they're made to deal with those situations. And it is a case-by-case basis. And so for her, it's going to be easy.
Right.
And for him, it's like, come on, how did you feel in that moment? How did that make you feel when that happened? Did you feel like that was right? And it's okay to say something or do something, or maybe you don't say something to the person that's doing something egregious, but maybe you teach him to go to the person that they were egregious to and say, hey, I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah, I would say you model it first. In situations, and they like for us, they come up where, again, my wife is Vietnamese, and so I remember we were at the pool one day, and so my nephew Alex, who was there, he's full Vietnamese, and then we had another family that was there, and it was this a black kid, and so he was like. He kept saying to my nephew, like, "Yeah, are you gonna make me some rice? Are you gonna make me some rice?" And every time I heard it probably twice, and I was like, is he saying what I think he is? And in that moment, I said, hey, we don't talk like that, right? And I use the word we strategically because, one, like, we're building a community. Like we are a community. You're not any different from me. Like it could have been, because I that's what I told him. I said, hey, what if my nephew here said, hey, do you want me to make you some fried chicken? I was like, I would tell him. And I said this whole conversation in front of my kids. I was like, I would tell him, we don't talk like that. It becomes a we thing. As we know, we try to model who we want our kids to be to the best of our ability. And we don't want them to be, judgmental.
Yeah. And to say what Buck was saying about like people as in general, the phrase I love is always we are they. Like if they say they are like this, no. Yeah. We are they. We are a part of that group.
Well, that's and good. To tie some of these things together, like I do think what you were saying is extremely important. Of we're a community. We're a community of human beings, and we don't do that. We don't talk to people that way. We don't put people down like that, because I think tying in what you were saying in the beginning is that, when we judge, we separate ourselves out away from the situation to overlord, look over the situation. And so, when we model that, like, I like what you were saying of like, we don't talk like that, not you don't talk like that.
You're right.
Because that automatically means that I can if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I can talk like that if I want to, but you cannot talk like that.
Yeah.
Right. We don't talk like that.
Right.
And I do that often with my boys too, especially when they're like fighting with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's a good like everyday example, because like some of these things don't come up every day.
Right.
Of my kids being judgmental. But will my boys fight every day? Probably.
Yeah, and they're judging their siblings,
And
right?
they're judging,
Like,
in those moments, they're judging.
Idiot.
But,
Yeah.
when I'm talking to them about what's going on, it is we, and I'm bringing we into it, and not
Team Buchanan right here.
Yeah.
We're the team. That's so good. Gosh, I love these podcasts. I feel like we get done and go, "Ooh, that was good, Reggie. That was good, Jason. That was good, Buck. That was good." And it just feels like learning so much from you guys, and I just thank you for that. What do you guys say? Let's pro move of the day would be what?
I would want dads to just be more aware of what's going on in your kids' lives and kind of what they're talking about, because and be more aware of how you are handling those situations. If it is a more normal situation, like discipline because your kids are fighting. What's your response? Do you say like, you can't say that, or do you say we don't talk that way?
Okay, so a pro move could be, we're going to start saying we don't do.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I get them in the mindset of treating others like you would want to be treated, not like you were. This is what the conversation I have with my kids all the time. You don't treat them like they treated you to get them back or to be fair.
Oh, yeah.
You treat them how you would want to be treated. And that's a hard concept for kids to understand, because naturally they want to retaliate. They want to level the playing field. You just put me down. Now I need to drag you down here with me. And so for me, I'm always saying, when your sister did that to you, did you like it? No, you didn't like it. Well, do you think you turned around and you did the exact same thing to her? Do you think that's right? So just having those intentional conversations with saying like, hey, teach them the lesson, pause in the moment and teach them the lesson that you're trying to teach them in a calm way. Because it's easy for you to just be like, blow up and be like, stop fighting. I'm just annoyed that you guys are fighting.
Right. That's good.
Yeah, I would say to not move in fear, but move in truth and love, and stand on that as a foundation. We live in a world we can judge so many things. The world is not easing up on the things that is come out and that we could judge, but that's where you're standing on your love and you're standing on truth, and then I think it shields you from judging, but it helps you be impactful in the world. It helps you be very impactful. So
you guys, thanks for teaching me on this. This is good stuff. I appreciate you guys. And thanks for everyone that's listening. We hope this encourages you to continue to be an all-pro dad. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis.